And I came here, I wanted to be here because of my colleagues. They are the reason that I am here today and why I hope to be here for a long time. Because I believed in, I came to conduct the orchestra and play with the orchestra in 2019, I think it was, before the pandemic, and I had such an amazing experience. We did an extremely difficult program, an all-French program that included La Mer, one of the most difficult and transparent works of literature, and I was so knocked out by everything. And then, of course, I got invited back, and the pandemic hit, and everything fell apart. So I came back a year ago, and I had a conversation over dinner with Brian Pekovich, whose wife Carolyn I have known since she was a student when I was teaching at the Eastman School of Music. And that led to a further conversation with Roberto. And Roberto flew out to Los Angeles, and we had lunch and we spoke for a good 2 hours. And by the end of that conversation, I think we both knew that this was supposed to happen. I had no idea. I don't think I'd ever heard of the Scottish Rite at that time. Which leads me to talk briefly, before I get into my vision and my plans, just to say a few words about, I was really appreciative that Roberto spoke about all of the arts. I happen to, some of you may know this, but I have a master's degree in ancient Greek and Latin literature. And the word music, like almost every single word that we use that refers to music, is an ancient Greek word. And the Greek word musike, the thing is, if you translate music, the word music into Greek, it's musike. But if you translate that word musike into English, it includes visual arts, poetry. The Greeks thought of all of the arts, they called it the realm of the muses. Somebody, I don't know, Roberto, maybe you know who said this, a very, very famous saying about architecture, and I've heard it attributed to a number of people, that architecture is frozen music. It's a famous saying. And what many people, when people think about what are the elements that make up a music, you ask most people, they say, well, melody and harmony and rhythm. But form, structure, architecture is absolutely central. It is what made the classical tradition possible, was the idea of music as architecture. So it is so incredibly fitting, first of all, the fact that we're in a classical, in a building that is based on classical architecture, but that we are here to keep alive this incredibly beautiful, centuries-old tradition of instrumental music. And to do it in a space that is truly our home, and that will allow us not only to celebrate all of the great core repertoire of the past that everyone loves and knows, but also to be a force for the creation of new music, new works, and to introduce people to a whole world of music and musical experiences that they might never have had. I also have to say a very heartfelt thanks to the Scottish Rite. I know that most of you are aware of this, but just in case, the relationship between music and Freemasonry is profound. Mozart was a Freemason, Jean Sibelius was a Freemason, Duke Ellington was a Freemason, Louis Armstrong was a Mason, and John Philip Sousa, I just learned that, was a Mason. So I am in the process, literally, today, of devising a special program that we will do, I hope in the spring, but as soon as we can, devoted entirely to music by the great composers who were Masons, and to celebrate that heritage. There's been some speculation that Beethoven may have been a Mason as well. It's appropriate I mention it because, of course, we're coming up on our performances of the Ninth Symphony of Beethoven. Probably, perhaps the most iconic work and most beloved work of classical music ever composed. And even if Beethoven was not a Mason himself, he was deeply influenced by Mozart, who was. And the ideals of Freemasonry are very much the ideals of which the Ninth Symphony speaks. Everything, you know, this is all kind of a perfect confluence of events. So I think probably everybody here knows all of the great things that are happening this year. I think it's very important that everybody knows that I am actively involved in working on next season. I have a conversation later on today with the manager of one of the greatest musicians in the world who has agreed to come. I can't name names, but and I will be doing a lot of that in the weeks and months to come. And hopefully by January or February, we'll be able to let you in on all the amazing things that are going to happen in the future. But I think those are the main things I wanted to touch on, and I'm just so grateful. I have to hand it to Roberto. I know that we wouldn't be here if it were not for him, so I want to.
I just want to mention one last thing.
I'm supposed to say, hey, yeah.
No, but no. Go to the rehearsal.
Oh, right. We will be having at least one, maybe multiple open rehearsals here for the Beethoven Ninth Symphony, and we're very excited to welcome the community to that. Especially excited about welcoming lots and lots of kids, but everyone who wants to come. I'm a great believer in open rehearsals. Over the years, I've had many patrons say to me, you know, I love the concerts, but what I really love is watching the orchestra rehearse. So please feel welcome to be there for that. And now, I guess we have to sign some papers.
We got to sign some
papers. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Do I get to keep the pen?
We're going to frame this with the contract.
Gentlemen, right here, please. Thank you.
I want to say one last thing. It's not lost on me that the San Antonio Philharmonic, formerly known as the Symphony, San Antonio Symphony, many years ago was working on a deal to be in this very building. Just a couple decades ago.
Correct.
For unfortunate reasons, that deal was blocked. It didn't happen. I want to thank specifically Brian Pekovich and the team, Lee Hibb, and others who have been part of helping to keep that dream alive. And the fact that we accomplished that today is just makes it that much more special.
It is. And I want to add that I was going through some of our old records. We've actually been trying to do this since the 70s. So this has been a long process. And again, just to go back to what was said here, many of you may not know what the Scottish Rite does, but one of our main tenets is to promote public education of the arts, and that's what this building was built for. And that's what happened here for half a century. And I'm glad it is happening again because that's what needs to happen here. This is the reason this building exists. So we are very, very happy.
And it will.